Hello and welcome to PPC Money Matters, a channel that covers everything regarding stocks and investing, personal finance, and opportunities as a self-employed in the finance industry. I'm your host, Finn. Today I'm going to talk about a very hot topic in France right now, Emmanuel Macron's controversial pension reform. This reform has sparked massive protests and strikes across the country, and many people are wondering what it is all about and why it is so unpopular. So in this video, I'm going to explain the main points of the reform, the reasons behind it, and the arguments for and against it. Let's get started. First of all, what is the pension reform? Well, basically, it is a plan to overhaul the current pension system in France, which is very complex and fragmented. There are 42 different pension schemes for different professions, each with its own rules and benefits. For example, some workers can retire earlier than others, or get higher pensions based on their final salary rather than their average salary. The reform aims to create a single, universal pension system that applies to everyone equally, based on a points system. This means that every euro earned throughout one's career would give the same pension rights, regardless of the job or the sector. The reform also intends to raise the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64. Which would be the so-called pivot age or full pension age. This means that workers who retire before 64 would get a reduced pension, while those who work longer would get a bonus. The government says that this measure is necessary to balance the pension budget and ensure its sustainability in the long term, as France has an aging population and a low birth rate. So why is Macron pushing for this reform? Well, he says that it is part of his vision to modernize France and make it more competitive and fair. He argues that the current system is unfair because it creates inequalities and privileges for some workers over others. He also says that the current system is unsustainable because it is running a deficit of about 17 billion euros per year, which could rise to 50 billion euros by 2025 if nothing is done. He claims that his reform would make the system simpler, more transparent, more flexible, and more adaptable to changing lifestyles and careers. But why are so many people opposed to this reform? Well, there are several reasons. First of all, many workers fear that they will lose out under the new system, especially those who have special regimes or who work in physically demanding or risky jobs. They worry that they will have to work longer for lower pensions, or that their pensions will be less predictable and depend on economic fluctuations. They also distrust the government's calculations and projections, and suspect that the reform is a disguised way of cutting public spending and lowering living standards. Secondly, many people see the reform as an attack on their social rights and their way of life. They view the current system as a pillar of the French social model, which guarantees solidarity and protection for workers. They argue that the reform would undermine this model and create more individualism and insecurity. They also accuse Macron of being arrogant and authoritarian, and of ignoring their demands and concerns. They demand more dialogue and consultation with the social partners and the public. Thirdly, many people are angry about the way the reform was handled by the government. They criticize the lack of transparency and clarity about the details and implications of the reform. They also denounce the use of a special procedure called 49-3, which allows the government to bypass parliament and pass a law without a vote. They say that this procedure is undemocratic and disrespectful of the parliamentary debate and the popular will. This story serves as a reminder of the importance of being careful when making investment decisions. Just as the French government faced protests and backlash for their controversial pension reform, individuals and companies also face risks when making financial decisions that could impact their future. It's crucial to thoroughly research and analyze potential investments, weigh the risks and benefits, and seek professional advice if needed. By taking a cautious approach, we can minimize the potential for negative consequences and make sound financial decisions that will benefit us in the long run. Thank you for tuning in to Money Matters, a channel brought to you by Pinnacle Personnel Consultancy. PPC is a dynamic and innovative company. We're committed to providing exceptional networking events and fostering connections within the finance industry.